Hello everyone. Today's story is about Diep and James, when two men posing as police officers come to search Diep's home for a fugitive. James bravely stands up to protect her and stops them from entering without a valid warrant. This incident reveals a dangerous plot involving an old friend, John, turning their lives complicated and full of challenges. If you enjoy thrilling and suspenseful stories like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you won't miss out on more exciting videos. Thanks so much for watching. The peaceful quiet of the late afternoon hung heavy in the air as Diep moved softly around her living room, organizing a few scattered papers on the table. The sun was beginning to dip low, casting warm amber hues through the windows. It was a calm moment, the kind she cherished after a long week, a moment where nothing seemed wrong, where life felt simple and safe. Then, without warning, the sharp sound of pounding came from the front door, breaking the silence like a sudden clap of thunder. The knocking was hard, insistent, demanding attention. Diep froze, a flicker of unease creeping through her. She hadn't been expecting anyone. Before she could even reach the door, it was flung open with force, revealing two men standing there. They were both in dark suits, but something was off. Their clothes didn't quite match the official uniforms she was used to seeing on real officers. Their faces were stern, hardened, and their eyes scanned the house with a cold intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. "We're here on official business," the taller man announced, voice steady but edged with an unmistakable authority. "There's a fugitive believed to be hiding on this property. We have to conduct a search immediately." Diep's heart raced. She instinctively stepped back, clutching the doorframe as a wave of anxiety washed over her. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, voice trembling slightly but trying to stay composed. "There's no one here but me." The shorter man produced a folded piece of paper from inside his jacket and waved it toward her. "We have a warrant. This is a serious matter. You must cooperate." Diep squinted at the paper, but it was folded just so she couldn't clearly see any official stamps or signatures. Something didn't sit right. Before she could respond, footsteps echoed behind her. James appeared, his expression immediately hardening as he took in the two strangers blocking the doorway. "Hold on," James said firmly, stepping forward. His voice was calm but carried unmistakable authority. "Let me see that warrant." The men exchanged a brief glance but reluctantly handed over the document. James unfolded it slowly, eyes narrowing as he scanned the contents. The paper looked hastily printed, lacking the usual formal seals, official signatures, and verifications, a glaring red flag. "This isn't a legitimate warrant," James declared quietly but with firm conviction. "You have no right to enter this home without proper authorization." The two men's faces tightened. The taller one took a step forward, his tone harsher now. "We don't have time for delays. The person we're after is dangerous. You need to let us in." James squared his shoulders, unwavering. Without the proper legal documents, I can't allow it. If you try to force your way in, I will call the real police." For a tense moment, the two men glared at James, weighing their options. Then, finally, the shorter one muttered, "This isn't over," and they turned on their heels, disappearing down the driveway. James closed the door firmly behind them and leaned against it, eyes scanning the empty street. "That felt staged," he said quietly. "Someone wants to rattle you or maybe find something." Diep let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Why would they come here? What are they after? James shook his head slowly, brows furrowed. "I don't know yet. But it's clear this wasn't about a fugitive. I think John is behind this." Diep's heart sank. John, her once trusted friend, who lately had grown distant and secretive. The thought that he might be using such a dangerous tactic to get to her made her skin crawl. "We need to be careful," James said, gripping her hand gently but firmly. "Whatever they're looking for, we'll face it together." James stepped forward, his expression firm and unwavering. The faint creak of the wooden floor beneath his feet seemed louder in the sudden silence that had fallen over the porch. He planted himself squarely between Diep and the two men, his presence a clear barrier. "I'm sorry," James said, voice steady and authoritative, "but you don't have a valid search warrant. We cannot allow you into this house without proper legal authorization." The two men exchanged uneasy glances. Their confident posture faltered for a moment as they tried to regain control of the situation. One of them cleared his throat, attempting to sound official. "We have every right to be here. There's a fugitive believed to be hiding inside, and we're just doing our duty." He held up a folded paper. "This is our warrant." James took the paper from him and unfolded it carefully, his eyes scanning every detail. The paper looked hastily printed, missing official stamps or signatures that would give it legitimacy. "This is not a valid warrant," James said calmly but firmly. "Without the proper seals and signatures, this document means nothing." The men's faces tightened, frustration starting to seep through their composed facades. The taller one's voice hardened. "You don't understand the urgency. We can't wait for formalities. This fugitive is dangerous, and if we don't act now, he could escape." James shook his head slowly, his tone unyielding. "I understand the urgency, but breaking the law won't help. You want to enter my home? Then bring the proper paperwork. Until then, I'm afraid you have no authority here." There was a tense pause, filled only by the distant sounds of neighborhood life, a dog barking, children laughing far down the street. James held his ground, his gaze never wavering from the two men. The shorter man's voice dropped, almost pleading now. "We're not here to cause trouble. Just cooperate, and it won't take long." James's jaw tightened. "I'm telling you, without a legitimate warrant, you are trespassing. If you don't leave now, I will call the real police." For a long moment, neither side moved. The two men exchanged a quick, charged look. It was clear they were weighing their options, and that James was not someone to be intimidated. Finally, the taller man muttered, "This isn't over," before both men turned abruptly and walked away down the driveway. James watched them go, his eyes sharp and alert, then closed the door firmly behind him. The sudden quiet inside felt heavy, almost suffocating. He turned to Diep, his voice lowered but urgent. "That was too close. They came here without proper authority, trying to strong-arm their way in. Someone's trying to intimidate you, or worse." Diep's hands trembled slightly as she clutched her shirt. "Why would anyone do this? What could they want from me?" James's face grew serious. "I don't know yet, but we have to be careful. This wasn't just about a fugitive, it was about you. I think someone's trying to find out information, and it's dangerous." Diep swallowed hard, looking to James for reassurance. "What do we do now?" James took a deep breath, his voice steady. "We stay vigilant. I'll protect you, no matter what. But we have to be ready for whatever comes next." The weight of the moment hung between them, heavy and real. Outside, the shadows grew longer as dusk settled over the neighborhood, but inside, a quiet determination took hold. James and Diep were no longer just living their everyday lives. They were facing a threat, one that would test everything they had. As the door closed firmly behind the two men, the atmosphere inside the house instantly grew heavy and suffocating. James stood still for a moment, his gaze following their figures as they disappeared down the street, then turned back to look at Diep. Before him, she was still trembling, her eyes moist with unshed tears, trying her best to stay composed. "I figured it out," James said, his voice lowering, heavy like a warning. "They're not real police. This was a setup, a way to probe and gather information about you." Diep looked at him, unable to hide her worry. "But why? Why would John do this? I don't understand." "Are you sure?" James nodded. "I'm very sure. John's been acting strange for some time now. He's not the same as before. He wants to know something about you, or your family. And now he's resorting to unethical means to pressure you." James's tone was filled with sadness, mixed with anger and helplessness. "We can't take this lightly, Diep. If John has come this far, it means the danger is growing." Diep took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. "I'm scared, James. Scared that everything is getting more complicated and I don't know how to face it." James stepped forward, taking her hand in his eyes full of determination. "I will always be here for you. I will protect you, no matter what happens. You don't have to face this alone." In that moment, the room seemed to still, filled only with their steady breathing and the slowly spreading feeling of safety in Diep's heart. But alongside this temporary peace were worries and unanswered questions. Where is John now? What will he do next? And can they stop him before it's too late? James's face remains serious. We need to be cautious. You have to watch everything carefully, don't let your guard down. I'll investigate John more closely, find out what he's planning. Diep nodded, her heart filled with resolve. I'll be more careful. I won't give him the chance. Outside, the street lights flickered on, illuminating every corner of the neighborhood. Night had fallen, bringing darkness, but also a time to stay alert. James and Diep knew the battle ahead would not be easy, but at least they had each other, a strength to overcome all challenges. James pulled Diep into his arms, gently soothing her. No matter what happens, we face it together. And nothing can hurt you while I'm here. Diep rested her head softly on James's shoulder, feeling his warmth and steadiness. In that moment, she understood that no matter the hardships, they would not be alone. Love and trust were the greatest power to conquer any danger.